This is the story about well, I think it's a reference to it, the woman who called a child, actually, which is the one thing about the story I'm kind of not completely okay with, but whatever, called a child. And because of the circumstances and because of her confidence, she got quite a lot of money for it. Because he was acting like one. Yeah, I love how this picture glorifies her as if she's way more... Like, guys, she didn't do it as a brave, rebellious move against a popular social order. She did it because she's poor. Now, that said, that's not necessarily a bad reason to support her, because what she was doing, whether she knows it or not, was a symbol of free expression. So I think it was... You know, I get why she was supported for it, and I don't think it was a bad thing, particularly if they do try to go after her legally. But it's this kind of move, this kind of proof positive, that when you say a naughty word in public, not only is it not a bad thing for you, it's actually a really good thing materially. That kind of incentive shift is what causes a critical mass and collapses an entire rotten edifice of culture and replaces it with a new one. Now, it's still a gradual process. It hasn't happened immediately. But again, all of these things that we're seeing that seem like they could be linchpins, I do think they're adding up. But yeah, I think just going out and saying the N-word isn't enough to get $500,000. And I think if she had just said it confidently, like she did, it wouldn't be enough for quite as much as she got. I think the reason it happened is the black kid was literally stealing from her child, which fits the stereotype. And remarkably, and some people didn't know this, the black guy that was filming her was, drumroll please, a pedophile filming children at a playground and was also black. Yeah, I did no sympathy. Yeah, give her the money. Fuck it. That's all. I don't care anymore. Hasima says it worked out for her because she's a woman. I think that's part of it, yeah. Yeah, I think her being a woman is part of it, especially a white woman, because they are... White women probably the least likely group to use the N-word. Wolf says, no, the reason it happened is because the guy filming her explicitly stated he wanted to cancel her. Let's see what the internet has to say. Ah, that's a good factor. I didn't hear that, actually. That's good. Yeah, that would help as well. Noir fatigue is very real, says Quattro. I think the idea of black fatigue is probably true. But again, I prefer not to make it about the race, not because there are not racial differences, but because the issue isn't their race. The issue is the ideology around their race and the arbitrary and authoritarian enforcement of it. If that wasn't there, yes, there'd be racial differences. There may even be tensions or imperfections or problems caused by it, but they'd be nowhere near how as bad as they are now because of the ideology being massively over-enforced. That's what people, I think, are tired of. Frankly, I was tired of it 10 years ago. Dirt people. Hello, Frisson. I haven't seen your name pop up in a while. He says, Grifters could want a piece of that money now that the US is shutting down. Yes. I don't think that's what happened here. I mean, it's been proposed that the whole thing was a setup, that they did it to get money, but there's two reasons that's, well, yeah, there's two reasons that's very unlikely. Reason one, when people say they tend to get cancelled, not 500 grand. This is kind of different. Like, this is the first example of this. There's loads of examples since this will have been setups to try and get a bunch of money, and maybe some of them tricked some people, but they won't match this. This is a watershed. Like a individual, a singular event. And the second reason it would be hard to set this up is because they needed to have an actual file. And that's like the cooperating with a file using your own child. It's not impossible that someone might do that, but it seems quite unlikely. So I strongly doubt that it was set up. But if it was, it worked. The teenager that murdered a teenage boy got $500K. Yeah, that is a good point, Zeman. Yeah, the Carmelo Anthony, I think was his name. I can't remember if that was the boy murdered or the black guy. And I say murdered because the facts of the case seem pretty straightforward. Yeah, Give Send Go thing. So at Give Send Go says Jacob Wells, who I think is their CEO, we recently disabled comments on the fundraising campaigns for Carmelo Anthony and Shiloh Hendrix due to the unacceptable volume of racist and derogatory remarks. At the time, comments were turned off. Both campaigns had raised approximately $500,000 with Iran, and then there's more. And like, you got to wonder, okay, that sounds balanced. Although I don't think the website should be making a judgment of, these people are being naughty, let's ban them from conversing. And just because they did it in two, like censoring both sides doesn't make it any more okay. It at least isn't as biased, but it's still wrong. In fact, arguably, it's twice as wrong because you're censoring more people, more conversation. And then read it out of context, the community notes. It says Jacob Wells, citing free speech, had formally, repeatedly refused to disable comments on Carmelo Anthony's fundraiser, which explicitly called for the death of white citizens. Such comments were allowed on Anthony's fundraiser for over 3 weeks until today. So, on the one hand, yeah, it sounds like hypocrisy. It sounds like he's only doing this to try to give an appearance of balance. And that he doesn't really mind, it's just that he needs to maintain appearances. However, I will also somewhat forgive him for being in a kind of unwinnable and uncertain situation where, like, for me, for example, when there's a policy decision to be made, and some of you lament this, and I totally understand why, I sometimes take a long time to come to a conclusion. But I would far rather take my time and come to the right conclusion than rush the wrong one. And sometimes the correct answer is inaction. So it's, often actually. So it's far smarter to wait and have more information and really, really figure it out as long as it's safe to wait, than to rush it. And so I'm perhaps being too generous, but I will say that is a plausible defense for him. That the whole time for those 3 weeks, he was thinking, should I prevent that? That seems wrong. Maybe I should. I'll think about it. It's a big question to ask. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. And then the other one pops up and he thinks, okay, it's either becoming a trend or it's like the optics concern would have come into it as well, saying that, well, I kind of want to do something about these threats, but my business would be destroyed if one side thinks I'm being biased. If he sees the opportunity to do something about them without being biased, then, you know, I can understand someone prioritizing the survival of their business. I don't know. There's lots of things to consider here. I need to know more about him, but just it's a plausible defense. He just took his time to think it through.